24.
Yeah, I feel like in the NBA, when you have 10 teams and then ultimately 8 that make the playoffs, everyone's kind of in, and you have chances to have multiple series against each other. I think it's got to be conference finals or beyond for it to really be that level of rivalry, so to speak. But in modern day NBA, we don't have many rivalries. We have LeBron against the Warriors, whatever team he's on against the Warriors. But yes, okay, so for today, this can be a rivalry. These two teams don't like each other. As we saw at the end of the game, where there's a whole unwritten rule thing, are you going to take a shot up points, and then Jokic runs over to McDaniels to get in his face. I believe that Jokic is just mad at his own team, and he took it out on the T-Wolves, probably what happened. Randall gets fined, Jokic gets fined, whatever. Big whoop in terms of the penalties on that because it doesn't matter. But Wolves up 3-1, but they're now going to be without Anthony Edwards, who's going to be out multiple weeks with a knee injury. They're without Dante DiVincenzo, who's done for the season with a torn Achilles. This is a major problem, not for the Wolves alone. It's a major problem for the NBA. Because if the Wolves win this series, you're going to get a depleted Wolves team in the next round. Like, that's the last thing you want if you're the NBA right now.
But can't we look at it the same thing with the Lakers? Lakers win that series. Your prize for winning that series, potentially without Luka. Who knows if Austin Reeves, when he'll come back. But your prize is winning that series and then going on to play the Thunder.
No, because the Lakers have this guy. I think you've heard of him. LeBron James. It's a little bit different, right? LeBron could play with all of us, and it'd be interesting.
Sure, but you're talking about injuries taking stars out of the game in critical times, which is in the postseason. And I don't know how. I mean, I do not think they'll blow a 3-1 lead here. I don't. I think that they
that in itself is a statement. Go further on that, because you're talking about without Anthony Edwards, without their entire starting backcourt, and your guy Ayo Dosunmu was unbelievable.
You don't think he can do another 43 off the bench? Well, he's going to be thrust into a starting role now.
I think he can drop 25 plus. I really do. I think he is that good. I love that guy as a player. I loved him in Chicago. He was great.
Yeah, me too. We never saw any of that. I wonder why, because they weren't ever in the position where they're playing games now that matter. But a 3-1 lead should be safe in all respects. We know that that's often not the case, but with the injuries here, your entire backcourt is decimated. This is going to be the test of Chris Finch's career, even though it's a first-round series, to get your team out of this and give yourself a fighting chance in the second round. I think it can happen. I don't think that they advance beyond the second round, because if Edwards is out indefinitely with a bone bruise in his knee, DiVincenzo's done for the season, you're going way back down the line in your depth, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to survive that. I think their front court can. Rudy Gobert has been playing out of his freaking mind. He's the one who tilted this series. And to circle back really quick, to answer a question, because it just reminded me of the Gobert and Jokic and of it all, I think Jokic is mad at himself because of how he played. His shooting has been terrible.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying his anger at the end of the game is not at his team, it's at himself.
I mean, the whole unwritten rule thing and taking a layup in that moment, I think, throw the rules. Him as head coach, David Aldridge, and what he said after the game is just stupid. You shouldn't be upset about that. You got the doors blown off you by a team that lost its starting backcourt in the game, and they came back and won. I think it's more him putting that on himself, just the frustrations pouring out, not just with your team, but he hasn't looked like the same guy since he had that 25-point triple-double in Game 1 of the series.
You mentioned best week ever with you and Peter Burns. Normally Gabe Neitzel in for him yesterday, and you guys had Tim Bontemps, ESPN senior NBA writer, Hoop Collective podcast, and he had this to say about Jokic and the blame game with the Nuggets.
By the way, Nikola Jokic, don't go 0 for 5 and have 2 turnovers against Rudy Gobert in the fourth quarter of a game you have to win against a team with 2 other starters out. So I hope nobody's suspended, but if people are, to me, it's the fault of one person and one person only, and I really don't want to hear any equivocation of, his actions were justified because Jaden McDaniels made a layup. I just don't have a lot of time for that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we talk about teams that could underachieve in the postseason, and then what happens after that, right? We've talked about prior to all the injuries. Okay, if the Lakers weren't able to win, what happens with them? We're now talking about the Rockets, right? If they're not able to win, what happens with them? The Pistons if they lose in a 1-8 matchup to the Magic and they're down 2-1, what happens to them? The Raptors are now tied with the Cavs, right? We've talked about the Cavs as, oh my God, Donovan Mitchell, could that be the Knicks situation? Could they go? Now, finally, we've talked about that, right? Knicks, obviously, we just mentioned. Has anyone mentioned the idea that the Denver Nuggets won a championship with this core-ish group? Now, it's been changed since then, a few years back, and really haven't done anything since. And that they're potentially going to lose this series. As you're saying, you don't think they're going to come back and win, which means they're going to lose without Ant. I mean, there are major changes that are needed there. They fired a coach. I understand that. Michael Malone, who's now at UNC. But Jamal Murray? Do we need to start thinking about his future with them? Aaron Gordon is awesome when he's healthy. They made a trade to give up Michael Porter Jr. and get Cam Johnson, but that hasn't worked. I'm not somebody that has ever brought up Denver as wholesale changes around Jokic.
Because everything goes as far as he wants to take that team. At any point, and we don't have any speculation about this, at any point is he like, I can't do it anymore here? That's when I'd start to have real concerns.
To leave?
Yeah.
Okay, good question. Why don't we do that with him? Because if his name was Giannis, we would do that. Because
there's never been any smoke around it. Really, there's always been smoke around Giannis because it's been win a championship, mull your future. It's never been that with Nikola Jokic because he's always had something else that's occupied his time.
But does he need a new co-star?
I think we've been having that discussion for a couple of years now. Ever since they won the championship, we've thought about a number 2 with Giannis and whether Jamal Murray is really the right guy for him. I mean, Aaron Gordon is terrific. You're right, but it doesn't in his role. And I know that, personally, I think Jaden McDaniels in the defense comment really got under this team's skin the last the last week or so because they've looked atrocious defensively and they've gotten exposed. Do you have somebody in mind that you could ever envision pairing with Jokic that would then mitigate those weaknesses? I can't find that person right now.
On the defensive side?
Yeah, I can't find that person. It's not on the team. Really?
I'm just saying. Here's the thing about Jokic. I am happy we don't critique him the way we critique other superstars. There is not a superstar in all of sports that we critique less at that level than Jokic. Not one. Not one. I mean,
he hasn't invited the criticism. That's the benefit to him. He's kept quiet about if he doesn't want. And I'm not thinking that there's any speculation about if it goes south, they lose in Game 5, it's over for them. They're thinking about, well, how do we get back to this stage? Do we have to blow it up? Does he want to be there? There's never been that question because he's never put it out there. But is Denver a place where he can actually win?
Yes.
Because
I believe it is.
If the core changes around him, if you get him a better running mate.
It's going to have to. But I'm glad we don't critique him the way we critique other superstars because it puts in perspective how overly critical we are of others. But if you think about it, we critique every quarterback in the NFL more than we critique Jokic. We critique other players that are deemed to be his peers in the NBA more than we critique him. I mean, Pat, it was critiquing his own guy and Bryce Harper last week. More if you just think about other stars in sports that would be at his level, which is top 1% of their sport, every single one of them is critiqued more than Jokic.
Well,
and I'm happy we don't critique him, but if they lose this series and they lose Game 5 without Ant-Man, that's a whole different conversation.
Well, his play needs to be critiqued. I hope that's what you're getting at because he's shot awful the last 2 games. Yes.
Yeah.
He has not been the same player since Game 1. And I don't know what's changed, really, because their formula to win has not changed.
Tonight, 10:30 Eastern, They better win. They better take this at least to 7. I don't know how you take it to 8. So they better get to 7. They better get to 7 in this series because the grass may not be greener for them. It can be if you get True Green. Getting and maintaining a lawn you love is no small task, but nobody makes it easier than the pros at True Green. They do all the hard work to give you a lawn worthy of the PGA Tour. Pro golfers like Jason Day, Ben Griffin, Patton Gonzalez,